welcome to the Labyrinth of Limitations, episode 10. This episode is on the dominant 7th diminished scale. Now we've talked about the dominant 7 flat 5 diminished, which is, and that's the dominant 7 flat 5, and the dominant 7th is just, this. That's the sound of the dominant 7th diminished. This scale is just made of a dominant 7th chord. Here it is, root, 3rd, 5th, and 7th, and then the diminished that resolves to it. And the diminished that resolves to anything, as I've said before, is made of a half step below the root of what we're resolving to, in this case D. So a half step below, or a major 7th above, and then 2, a major 2nd above, a perfect 4th, and a sharp 5. So that's what that is. So here is scale degree major 2nd above, 4, sharp 5, and then whoops. So that is D7 just played linearly. If I do that in chords, drop 2, everybody seems to know first. So this is it. And I'm just playing a diminished, then an inversion, a diminished, and then an inversion of my what I call the on chord. So the chord that is the sound of the scale, in this case D7, is the on chord. Right? Down. And then, the lower strings, murky sounding down there. So let's look at some basic moves to familiarize ourselves with it. For starters, I love doing this type of thing. So I'm going drop 2, drop 3, drop 2 and 4, drop 3, and drop 2. And that lets my voices go out like that. And then I'm going to do the same thing here, right? So this is going to be drop 2. That's the starting from the diminished. I always, as a default, I'm going to be on the on chord before I go to whatever it would go to. Though that doesn't always have to be the case with this scale, because the diminished is also coincidentally a diminished that can resolve to it's the flat 3 diminished in relation to, say, G. We'll talk about that more in another episode. So the basic idea is be on the on chord before you go on. If it's a diminished, if it's a dominant 7th diminished scale, be on the dominant 7th chord, which is the on chord, before going to the next thing for your normative move. So then, if I take this idea, that kind of idea, and I just go, right? Sounds very kind of classical. And there's actually a piece by Augustin Barrios, one of my favorite guitarist composers of the he's a romantic, post-romantic composer from the early 20th century. This was from the 30s. So he wrote this beautiful music, very Chopin-like, and called Choro de Saudade, which has a B section that does this, if you've heard the piece, and there's a part there he does it twice in this section. He goes like, and then he goes, and that is the diminished, to D7 to G. So that's just it's just that. It's just those are all synonyms, you could say. Whoops, that was wrong. And then all of these ideas. Those beautiful ideas. So that is kind of, that's from Choro de Saudade, which then, after he does that, it's in a different tuning, drop D and drop G. But when I was really starting to familiarize myself with this scale, I started thinking, like just hearing the sounds of that in my first early work with this, and it's really fun. So anyway, let's look at the elevator, right? So here's the elevator. I start on unison, and I go to third, right? And I go to, now I'm on the on chord again, because I started on D, now I'm on D7 again. And this is a triad, and then a broken chord, and then an octave chord, drop 2, and then drop 3, and then drop 2 and 4, and then, and there I am, right? So I work my way backwards. This is a double octave, just like in the other episodes, and then that's my drop 2 and 4, drop 3. Whoops. And you could even go one more. In all of these, you could always do this, which is kind of like doing the voicing I did here, where I went, it's like that type of thing. Big stretches. Anyway, so the elevator, practice it from every scale degree. Practice just staying on a floor of the elevator. So, right, and then, that was not right. So I need to practice that, right? But any of the floors of the elevator are valuable to practice. So that you can move between them if you know them well. So now, one of my favorite moves I like to do with all of these is to take a chord. We can take a drop 2. We can look at the bottom 3 notes of that, and it is a shell chord. And then if I take just the top 2 notes of that, and that is a minor third. Let's take that. And I'm going to... So I'm moving through the elevator from a third to a triad, you see, and to a broken chord. But now instead of doing this, I'm going to thin out my texture. So I'm going to, instead of doing this, I'm just going to play this. So I'm going to go something like that, but then why not just play it, instead of playing these notes, I play them here, so it's real. Like that. So now, so here's my diminished. I'm going to do the same type of thing. So this is a third, and I'm going to go, right, which is pretty. I'm not saying I wouldn't do that also, but you see, and then pretty stuff. So that's a really nice thing to practice. Another thing that is, and you can do these all out, but another thing to practice is to practice your individual notes then. Just like I took this, and I just made it this, so this is just a tritone, this is the fifths, and I can move that on up the scale, and then, and that's on the, G. Well, I can just practice any interval. So here's 6th, for example. Practice it. Now I'm confused. And then, there we go. It's pretty. I should practice that low end more. Always, I feel like I should. So those are nice. And then I kind of made, I like to, I'm going to have an episode where I just talk about moving between different dyads, which is 2-note chords, right? To do counterpoint of a kind of thinner type. Sounds a little bit more traditional, old, archaic, maybe, beautiful, I think. So I did one for you guys that's like... So that's just, I'm moving between, this is parallel motion in 6th, and I go to octaves, to tenths, and then moving out from there. So to a 5th separated by an octave. Really fun to practice that stuff. So then another thing to practice in this scale is the chromatic, Barry's chromatic scale. So remember on the C major scale, I've showed you how to, I have an episode just on the chromatic scale. But the idea is that you fill in the space between two notes that is a whole step apart, that are a whole step apart, with a half step that's in between them. But then when you don't have that available to yourself, well, then you have to jump up to the next scale degree, the next actual scale degree, not thinking chromatically. So when I'm going from E to F in a C major scale, I jump up to G and then go back to F. So, see, so that's the idea. So in this scale, it's an 8-note scale. It's very interesting. So I go, and then look, here I have a half step between 5 and sharp 5. So I go up to the 7th. And that's how I do that. So that's how you do that. And so let's put that into a line. So, so I'm going to go from D7. Just doing that same type of resolve to G minor. So, see? Doing that game. It's a lot of fun, and it's something that I always feel like I could practice more because it's just really rewarding, and it's a fun brain teaser, and you can really start to get a feel for it. So here's another one. This is an A7 moving to D minor. So this is in D minor. So that's where we are. So that's where we are, and I'm going to start on the diminished. So this is a diminished. See, this is the scale. If I go, whoops, that's not right. Isn't that pretty? That's just moving, starting on the diminished to A7, to the diminished, to A7, and then diminished, A7, to D. So now I'll do something like what I did. One more time. Oops, sorry. And then more chromatics. Really pretty stuff. So now let's look at borrowing in this scale. A lot of these are going to be recognizable from our dominant 7th diminished scale, because see, here is borrowing 3 notes on a dominant 7th diminished scale, and here is right. So it just depends on if I want or it's different turns of the phrase. So we'll just borrow 2. Is really pretty. What about doing on the diminished? And then maybe whoops. Something like that. Really pretty stuff. Borrowing is just one of my favorite things. It was the best thing I did for myself, was getting used to borrowing, which I put off for quite some time. So how about this? I'm on a diminished. I'm just in D7, so here's my D. Okay, so I'm going to be on the diminished in the bass, borrowing 3 notes, and then I'm going to go, and then I'm going to go, and review. I have 2 episodes on borrowing, and the second one talks about borrowing 3 notes and using the elevator concept to do that. But I'm always thinking 1 floor lower on the elevator than I'm on in know to borrow my 3 notes. That episode covers it. I can't remember which number, but it's the second episode on borrowing, called Borrowing, Taking the Elevator to Borrow from the Neighbors. So watch this. And then maybe... Isn't that pretty? What if I did it, I don't know, like... That's on the diminished. Again, and then I'm going to do it here. Oh, that's so pretty. I'll try one more. Let's see if I can do it. See, that would be... That time I have a space there, so I go... And then... really pretty stuff. So what I did, again, just to explain, is this borrowing 3 notes, and I did a chromatic scale because there's no space between. I go, so, and then maybe that's not the best item, but that's what. So I'm borrowing 3 notes and then filling in the second string like that. And it's in the PDF. It's really pretty. Love those sounds. So then moving beyond that, I think let's see if we have another example, I guess, would be how about oh yeah, this stuff on E. So this is on E flat. I'm going to end up on A flat. So I'm starting on E flat 7. I've been working on doing the lines, and it's a lot of fun doing just single note lines. But that's where I am at. I'm on E flat 7, and I'm going to do a let's see. It is contrary motion. And then this is talking about changing from the dominant 7th to one of the other scales of chords. So in this case, I'm going to go from E flat dominant 7th and move it into the tritones minor for E flat, which is at the half step up minor 6 that I talked about in the substitutions. And I'm going to have another episode that's just about running these scales into each other's, and there's this scale of scales I'll be talking about. It's really cool. But so I'm going to be this, E flat 7, then I'm going to be E minor 6 to A flat major, which is a really pretty sound. I'm going to run it into it like this. So how did I do this? I think I put an example down clearly. Yes. And what I did at the end there is just playing, I'm playing A7, which is E flat's tritone, and that's the reason why E minor 6. That's the sound that works there is A7, because that's the tritone substitution for E flat. So I'll do that one again. So it's really pretty. Something like that. Maybe not the best line, but you get the idea. So then just a couple more things here then, I guess, guys, is I'll do one more of that. So this one's going to have some borrowing, a little more elaboration. So it's I'm on the tritones minor now. This is E minor 6. And then I'm going to borrow. Let me see if I can get that in time. So what I did was E minor 6, borrowed, and then some contrary motion. So it's going to be, so it's like that. So it's it's really pretty. Another one, I really like that one too. So moving on then, I had this example at the end of the last big episode of talking about the octatonic scale, just showing you that you had at that point 5 ways of playing on a dominant 7th, and now we have 6. So taking kind of the same phrase idea, I'll try to do this quickly. This is C minor 6 on top of F7. So I'm, and then, so that's what I'm doing. I'm just going to do 1, 2, 3, so, but slow. Okay, so maybe like that. Okay, let's see. Yeah, so maybe. That's the idea. So that is C minor 6, which is the 6 on the 5. So now I will do the tritones minor, still on F7, but now I'm on G flat minor 6. So I'm going to go same type of idea. So that's that. And then I'll do the whole tone. Here's the whole tone. And then the whole tone. And then dominant 7th flat 5. So that's that whole tony sound, you know. And then I have the octatonic. Sorry. That idea. So that's the octatonic. And then we have the just dominant 7th. Maybe. So that's just that. So then, that being said, I have one more thing to show you before I end this episode. And I appreciate you hanging with me on these big ones. And you can always send me comments. It's been really fun talking about this stuff with you. There's something that I've seen Barry do in a few different episodes and classes that I've watched. And it is this move that I've heard him say it's one of the things that's really important to learn right at the beginning. So it is doing, let's say I'm going to be imagining that I'm on B flat 7, and then E flat major 7. Then I'm going to go A flat 7 and D flat. So I'm going to do the 6 on the 5, moving chromatically down so that it becomes B flat 7. So this is F minor 6, chromatically, and then I go to E flat major. Flat major 6. So E flat major 7 is really just E flat major 6 with a borrowed note on E flat major 6 diminished. So I'm just borrowing and then moving down chromatically. So that's kind of revealing to myself the reality of these situations so I can move through them. So, and then, so here's an elaboration, and you would do the same thing by the way. So an elaboration using the chromatic scale and thinking of the dominant 7th a little bit, dominant 7th diminished, is this. So what did I do there? I went minor 6 on the 5, chromatic. Now I'm thinking of this is the diminished for F7. So, and then this is what I meant to say is that this is the diminished for, F minor 6, and then I go to B flat 7 right here, right? So I'm just thinking of connecting these guys. So I'll do it one more time. And this is just a note in B flat 7, that I could do. So I'm kind of seeing it like that. And I can keep going. And then what would it be? So I went. that's a just, seeing the movement between these things is something I want to explore with you more now, and I'm going to be doing shorter episodes referring to these longer episodes and just kind of exploring just one little move and practicing through that. And that's what I'd like to do next with you guys. And so again, I really appreciate everybody joining me for this for this this whole thing. And the support has been really cool. The conversations have been really cool, and I'm going to keep going with it and talking about this stuff more. And so please give it a like and a subscribe. Don't forget to check out barryharris.com and take a look at what he's doing, at the Zoom classes, not what he's doing, but that are being offered there. They're really wonderful. And yeah, so thanks a lot, and I'll talk to you next time. Keep practicing.